Now I want to talk about the noise reduction aspect of the Details tab. Don't you just wish you had a noise reduction filter built into your noggin so that when your kids or your neighbors or whoever starts getting in on your case, just do some noise reduction? All right, now one of the things I want to point out to you is that in the noise reduction section we have two types of noise reduction. One is luminance and the other is color. Now, remember, as I was saying in the sharpening, that when we sharpen, we only sharpen the grayscale and we don't sharpen the color. Well, in the noise reduction stuff, we can also split things up to luminance, which is your grayscale, and color, which obviously I don't need to tell you what that is. Now, for the same exact reason that we have a default sharpening value of 25 applied to all images coming in to Camera Raw, we also have a color noise reduction value set at 25. The color detail is set right in the middle, and it's not moving one way or another. This default 25 value for the color noise reduction compensates for some of the junk that gets generated in our digital cameras. Years ago, we used to have to do this in a Photoshop action. We would sharpen a little bit to compensate for the anti-aliasing filter, and then we would blur just the color information to get rid of some of the color crossover, blooming, whatever it is that you want to call it, and I don't care what you call it, as long as you understand it needs to be on. When we actually play around with our luminance noise reduction, we are definitely going to blur our image or soften it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this up to about 50. And I think you can see that the image got a little softer. If I put it back down and let go, you can see that there's some detail coming back. If I take this slider and move all the way up to here, I think you'll see that this is obviously too much. I'm wondering if I could actually zoom in a little bit more so we can see this a little bit better. And I'm going to take this and put it back to 0. Now, you see all this stuff in here? Some would say this is noise. So what I can do is I can bring this up to here and get rid of some of it. I can get rid of some of that noise without really affecting this value that I've got going on up here. If I go too far, I'm going to smooth things out too much. Now, think back to the earlier chapter where I was going on with my rant and the different processes, and I showed you the shot of my grandson that was taken drastically underexposed inside a hockey arena. And I was moving this slider all the way up to 100. You saw how plasticky his skin looked. Well, the same thing is basically happening here. We've smoothed this out too much. If I take this back and put it to 0, you can see that we need some of this detail in here. Now, I'm going to get rid of some of this detail, but I'm not going to get rid of much of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, with my cursor sitting inside here, I'm just going to hit this up, and I'm going to take it up to about 30%. Now, I'm going to put my cursor in here and take this up to about 60%. Other kinds, what I would do is just come in here and give it 33, 66, or 99, something like that. And in my luminance, I'd give 33, 66, or 99. Why do I go 33, 66, 99? Because it's a lot easier to type in 2 3s than it is to hit 3 and then find the 0 key. Doesn't really matter. The other way of going about doing this is just holding the Shift key down and tapping 3 times. You'll go in increments of 10. One of the things I like to do is go in increments of 30%. You don't have to start sliding these little guys, and seriously, is there really a big difference between 29 and 33? No. Is there a difference between 27 and 30? Or is there a difference between 37 and 30? Not really. So to speed things up, go in predefined values. So I can play around with the contrast. I'm not going to, but if I was to do this, would we see that much of a difference? I'm not 100% sure. And holding down the Option key on any one of these doesn't do a darn thing. So, very, very subtle in what's going on. No difference between this and that. There you go. I think this is going to be a good adjustment with this amount here coming in and doing that. So if I were to uncheck that, you can see the noise and the lack of sharpness. And if I come back in here and click on that, you can see that I've increased the sharpness and reduced some of that digital noise. I'm just going to zoom out one more to get at that 100% view. Put this back up to something along those lines there. And I think I have been able to describe to you what the sliders do in the detail tab with respects to sharpening and noise reduction. One last thing is, if you find that you're increasing your noise a little bit, you can actually increase your sharpening slider stuff a little bit to compensate for the smoothing out of that. I was amazed to see that most consumer digital cameras and even prosumer digital cameras generate some noise, even in, for the most part, properly exposed images. The only camera models that I've ever personally noticed that there is no noise is in the high-end, top-of-the-line models of Nikon, Canon, Hasselblad, and all these other great things. It's one of the things that you get when you pay the big bucks is you get a better sensor. For those of us that don't or can't or don't want to justify that kind of an expenditure, come inside here, find these guys, play around, get it done, move on. Everything's great. Next, we're going to talk about the hue saturation grayscale slider.